And we are live, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I will call the City of Albuquerque Intergovernmental Legislative Relations Committee to order for Wednesday, September 3rd. Thank you everyone for being here. Looks like we have a brief agenda, so it's a interesting day because we have so many things at the city with an unusual schedule, with Monday being Labor Day. So happy Labor Day to everyone late, and I guess we'll get started. Our first item on the agenda is the report from our state lobbyists, Mr. Thompson and Mr. Park. Who would like to go first?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll start. Good afternoon, everyone. So one of the things that we've started to hear with regularity is this about a special session happening sometime. And I had heard that it was going to be mid-October, but this morning I heard that it's going to be October 1 and 2. And the nature of it is going to be mostly financial. They're still working out the details on whether they're going to do any crime legislation or other type of legislation. I think that's part of what's being negotiated, but I'm fairly confident that there has been an agreement to at least come into session to do some work. The reason it's interesting to me, Madam Chair, is that I believe there is an opportunity for us. I mean, the conventional wisdom is you want to stay as far away from a special session as possible if you can. It's just such a strained environment, and not that much good typically can come from it from our perspective. That being said, I do see value in us being around it because I think we'll be able to get clarity as it relates to capital outlay, particularly as it relates to outstanding projects. One of the things that Ms. Anaya and also I've talked with Mr. Motzko about is the status of projects and grants coming to the city and some of the delays that we're experiencing everywhere. So, I do see an opportunity for us to use, while we've got everybody in and about the building, to use that opportunity to drive for some clarity on some of those things. So that's an opportunity I see out there. And then I also think we'll pick up other information about what to expect in the coming months in a short session. I'll leave that up to Mr. Park to talk about that, but I do think that there's going to be legislation, substantive legislation in the coming session that would be of great interest to Albuquerque.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Are there any questions for Mr. Thompson before we go on to Mr. Park? Great. Mr. Park?
Thank you very much, Madam CAO. And I do want to follow up on Joe's comments. He's correct. It looks like there's an agreement that the special session will go October 1 and 2. That's a Wednesday and a Thursday. And they've picked that because if necessary, they will go to October 3rd, but the goal is to be out in no more than 2 days. But they're giving themselves a little wiggle room on the 3rd. It is largely focused on addressing any potential financial issues and or concerns with respect to the federal HR 1 that was passed. There are other issues that continue to be negotiated and discussed. Public safety is certainly one of them. There are issues regarding access to healthcare that bleeds into some of the HR 1 financing issues. There could be some issues that we see with respect to the access and provision of medical care. There continues to be a debate about the operations of ICE facilities in the state of New Mexico. That is a topic that is being discussed between the executive and legislators. We should have more clarity on what and how the session is going to shape up and look closer to the October 1st. But the important thing is they've settled on a date. They have broad strokes on what they're doing, and they are working pretty diligently. The governor's office and the legislators are routinely meeting right now, especially on the budget issues, to craft legislation that they can get in and out of. But we'll have more of that clarity. I mean, honestly, it's sort of like your bad vision. It's just going to get closer. It's going to get better and better the closer we get to October 1. So we're gonna have to wait a little bit, but Joe and I are completely on top of it and involved in a lot of these conversations and working to be a resource to both the executive and the legislators as they sort of address these issues.
Thank you, Mr. Park. Are there any questions from the committee for Mr. Park or Mr. Thompson? I don't see any, so thank you for that update. We look forward to getting additional updates from you all as you have a clearer vision on what it looks like related to October 1st and 2nd. So thank you for that information. It's good to have your updates. It's helpful. So and I appreciate that you'll reach out to staff in the interim as you gain insight. Next on our agenda is an update from our federal lobbyist. I think Mr. O'Donnell is here. I can see. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, good afternoon. Members of the committee, I have a brief report on appropriations and a couple of other items. The House today finished the markup and approval in committee of the Health and Human Services FY26 appropriations bill, excuse me. That means at this point, out of the 12 appropriations bills in the House, 10 have actually been acted on in full committee, and 2 have been acted on the floor of the House. On the Senate side, I don't really have a lot of detail on what the Senate plans to do now that they're back in session. They have 8 of their 12 bills they've handled in full committee. As I mentioned before, they did not bother with subcommittee markup of those 8 bills. So they have 4 left to do, and they've done 3. They've considered 3 on the Senate floor. So we're about 12 work days away from congressional work days away from the end of the fiscal year. So you know that we're not going to have an appropriations bill by the end of the month. The conversation right now is that they would probably use the Milcon, Ag, and Legislative branch bills. Those are usually the least controversial bills. They would take the 3 that have been done in the House and they would use them as a vehicle for a continuing resolution. The House Appropriations Committee Chair, Tom Cole from Oklahoma, says that they wouldn't go any further. He's not thinking of a CR that goes any further than Thanksgiving. So we'll see how that plays out here towards the end of the month. The situation right now that is in the background to all of this negotiation is the president having already submitted one rescission package, and then there's talk about from the White House, from OMB, that there may be further rescission packages. What that is done, and I've mentioned this last month, what that's done to some Republicans and Democrats who are on the Appropriations Committee is to say that, you know, the responsibility for setting the federal spending is in the Congress. The White House makes the proposals, but Congress decides on what the final spending limits are going to be. So these rescission packages really, by those folks who watch Congress and the power struggle between the executive and legislative branches, it really focuses on who's in control of that. And there's a preponderance of thinking that it's Congress who ought to be making those decisions. It's interesting that this week in the Congressional Quarterly, they published a letter that was about 2.5 pages long. And it was signed by 9 former staff members who were either Budget Committee staff directors or Appropriations staff directors. In fact, 2 of Senator Domenici's former staffers, Bill Hoagland and Steve Bell, who were pretty powerful when they were on the Hill, signed this letter, and I'm sure they probably helped draft the thing. But this letter really makes a point to, and it was sent to the senior Democratic and Republican appropriations ranking members and chairs, and it basically said, you folks need to remember that Congress has the authority to make decisions about spending and should not be fooling around with requests for rescissions after you've finished your appropriations work. I haven't seen that kind of a letter in all the time that I've been doing this work. And these former staff directors are around town in some interesting positions. Bill Hoagland is one of the senior people at the Center for Bipartisan Policy. So there is a strong feeling, and Democrats, as I said last time we talked about this, Democrats have said that they may favor a shutdown because they'll need 6 votes in the Senate to get a CR passed. So a lot of drama here in the last couple of weeks of the month. That is basically the report that I have for you at this point.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. Are there any questions from the committee for Mr. O'Donnell? I appreciate your insight, Mr. O'Donnell, in terms of the way in which this could play out related to a CR. It'll be interesting to see what power that letter has.
Madam Chair, I have one more thing I forgot I should mention. May I do that?
Of course.
I think it was either the last time we spoke or the IGR meeting before that, I mentioned that we had sent some information to the city about what the impacts, what we thought the initial impacts of the Medicaid cuts, the reconciliation would have on Bernalillo County and the city. Following that, and part of our work in doing that was to talk with the governor's office here in Washington. And today I reached out to Courtney Kirster, who's the staff director there, and she informed me that, and I just saw this, and perhaps you folks have seen this, but she sent me a report that I'm glad to forward to you, dated August 18th, and it says, this is the title of it: the Legislative Health and Human Services Committee Federal Budget Reconciliation Bill Implications to the Healthcare Authority. And as I say, you folks have probably seen this, but she sent it to me today because when we talked, I had shared with her the data that I had about some of the impacts that I had picked up from different sources. And so she confirmed today that they had released this report. So I'll send it along to Mr. Menicucci and to Josh and David.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. I appreciate you sending that on to both council services staff as well as admin, so that we can ensure that counselors have it as well as the administrative staff. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. O'Donnell? I appreciate that you provided that as well, Mr. O'Donnell, previously in terms of expected impacts in New Mexico from Medicaid cuts. So thank you. Okay. Seeing no other questions? Great. The next item on our agenda is to report on our upcoming preparation for the 2025 capital outlay and the administration and council's submittals related to IGR, related to our state legislative priorities. I think Ms. Anaya and Mr. Menicucci are prepared to discuss this item. I know that our packet included the administration's proposed priorities to the committee. I'm not sure if there is an addition to the packet for council services or the council's priorities.
So, Madam Chair, if I may begin on that. Yes, so basically what it is, I made an error. I had put the schedule down from last year for 2025, 2024, we had it down as October was the due date. We amended the legislation last year, the IGR legislation, to make it for August. I did not update my schedule. So the reason I had today to discuss it was I was expecting that we would be bringing forward at the October meeting the state legislative priorities. Ms. Anaya, of course, last week surprised me in when she sent over the administrations because she had knew that it was due in September. So the administration had theirs ready to go. And I unfortunately had to inform the councilors that we are not ready to go, but that if they could get everything to us by September 21st, staff, we would have something ready by October. My other hope was that the way the item C was written, that it would allow us to at least get the recommendation out for the administration this time for this period or at this meeting. However, I spoke with our legal counsel and counsel. They said that no, that it's probably not on broadly written enough, that we would have to wait for something a little bit more defined in October. So for this month, we can't give a recommendation yet for the administration. Of course, council is not here yet. However, of course, it doesn't prohibit the administration from submitting the EC to council for introduction so that we can move on it quickly once we get an October approval. And also it allows the administration to, publicize what they've done. But we do intend to have something for the council by the October meeting. The other issue that we do have is I could speak with our clerk to see if it's possible, if they'd like to work earlier, we could try to see if there's time to at least get in late September a special meeting of the IGR to get it adopted in late September. I haven't yet checked with our council clerk yet. I wanted to see what the will of the committee was. But at the very least, though, today, Ms. Anaya, I'll bring it up, and Ms. Anaya can cover the administration's work. So on that one there. So I'll stand for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Menigucci. I appreciate the explanation. It's helpful for the committee. I just want to make sure I also point out, I think the language in our ordinance is very specific. And so I recognize the value in this committee not approving something today, because the way the language is written it would have to be approved by city council at the very next meeting. And we happen to be in a very unique situation that today, the very next meeting is today. And so it would have been an impossibility, actually, I think, for us to perform both approval in this committee and have it on the council agenda tonight, just based on the uniqueness of the language in this, as the ordinance is written. So I understand, Mr. Menigucci, the conundrum that we are in uniquely because of Monday's holiday as well. Understand the calendar that you all have proposed for presenting council's priorities. And so I will kind of defer to the counselors on the committee if you believe we should have a special meeting of the committee later this month to provide for the opportunity, but I'm not sure it's all related to whether we are in compliance with that, the way the ordinance is written.
I would say that if we can have a special meeting, that might be a good idea. But I'm open to anything.
Okay, thank you, Council. I'm having to scroll to watch to see if I'm missing anyone raising their hand. So, okay, well, why don't we, if you don't mind, the committee, let's walk through Ms. Anaya, if you'd like to just hit the highlights of what you want to ensure folks know, and then Mr. Menigucci, I think figuring out how to schedule that special meeting would be really based upon your team's opportunity to, I know you have 9 counselors to work with to make sure you put together that document. So I don't want to be unreasonable in the time frame it would require for you all to collect that information. So
yes, Madam Chair, so we will aim, I'll seek to see if we can do it the 17th. If not, it might be the 24th. And also we'll try to see on our part if we can, I've already spoken to most of the counselors, analysts, see if we can, hurry that up as quick as possible. And I'll get back to you once I talk to the to the clerk, whether it to be the 17th or 24th or sometime in between there. I'll send out that email.
Thank you, Mr. Menigucci. So I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Naya.
Thank you. Mr. Menigucci, can you scroll down a little bit?
Or more?
Yep, this is perfect. Thank you. So the administration's priorities are organized by capital, and the second half would be our policy priorities. So you can see Housing and homelessness is broken down into broad buckets. Of course, some of these will have some sub-projects included within them for specific projects that we're really excited about, but are still kind of in the works as far as language. So this is going to be housing and homelessness, of course, continuing to invest in the housing navigation centers and gateway system, affordable housing, micro communities, data infrastructure. This was a big push last year, and we're going to continue working on it to support our housing and homelessness department. And then, also in conjunctions with kind of some other partners that are interested in getting better data. And then, of course, the rehab and conversions. And then we can scroll down to public safety. I'll flag those real quick. For all three of our departments, for ACS, for APD, and for AFR, looking to get some investment support for vehicles, facilities, and technology. Definitely needed for all of the departments, with some specific stations highlighted for AFR, whereas ACS and APD need support all over. And if we could scroll down to quality of life, continuing to ask for support for rail trail, for our pedestrian safety, bike safety, technology and infrastructure, and for infrastructure improvements, ADA enhancements at Balloon Fiesta Park. And then below that, if you scroll down to the next page, we'll get into policy priorities. We have our continued Metro Crime Initiative requests. These will look very similar to the last session. This goes on for the next page as well. We're continuing to try to support fighting crime, gun violence reduction, as well as some other kind of more internal departmental and statewide changes to support our department and law enforcement across the state. And then the final page, the 6th page, is going to be our Metro Homelessness Initiative, which highlights policy requests that relate to housing and homelessness. And then the newest addition is going to be pedestrian bicycle safety policy, looking for some education updates for driver's ed, among other related policy priorities. So that is our proposed packet, and we look forward to having more discussion as we move forward this month. And actually, one more thing that I wanted to flag real quick, just to piggyback off of Joe and Al's report. I was going to ask this question of them, but literally as I was logging in, I got an email from DFA. I wanted to flag for everybody that they have announced just this afternoon the key dates for capital outlay submission this year. Something that I've been looking for. I'm sure you guys have been looking as well. So the request forms are going to be available on November 1st, and the LCS submission deadline is going to be December 12th. And that should be on their website now, but like I said, as I was logging in, I got that email, so wanted to make sure since it's relevant to everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Anaya, for that update. It's helpful to have those dates, and reminds us of why we, I think, moved all our dates around for making sure we compiled everything. I did want to point out for the committee, in the Metro Crime Initiative sections within the Metro, or within, I'm sorry, the administration's priorities for policy, we do have in several cases where the matters are not just related to APD, but also ACS, and that includes violence prevention and other programs that they may have that are connected to our Metro Crime Initiative So those are incorporated into these priorities. Are there any questions for Ms. Anaya from the committee?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Well, with that, we will plan to take our action on our priorities at our next meeting, whether that is a special meeting or our next regularly scheduled meeting. Councilor Fevercorn, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. I apologize.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So I realize that we have changed this process, and I think it's a secret that I don't like this new process, but I will just once again ask if there is any way that individual counselors can please work with the administration on capital outlay requests that are going in their district. I realize that we're now just all doing our own thing, but it still makes it very difficult when we are at the roundhouse asking for funds and we get asked about, a project proposal that came in from Parks and Rec and we don't know about it. And so once again, I would just really appreciate it if there were going to be priority projects or capital outlay projects that are being proposed by the administration, that I would be made aware of those in advance.
I think that's a great idea, Councilor Fevercorn.
Thank you. We can make sure that we determine projects based upon council district and share those so that that discussion can occur. As you know, then our priorities that we put in front of IGR and city council, oftentimes those specific projects aren't always listed in this document. So I recognize that then occurs between that November to December timeframe. So we'll put that together. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is other business. I'm not sure if we have other business, Mr. Minicucci.
No,
Nothing.
ma'am.
Thank you. Well, with that, then I think we're done in exactly 30 minutes. So thank you all very much for your time, and we'll see you all in City Council in just an hour and a half. Thank you all. Bye-bye.